Awesome. It would be great to get started with a little bit of your personal journeys into the world of veganism. I don't mind who goes first. So whoever wants to take the reins.
I'll let Keegan go first on this one.
My name's Keegan Kuhn. I'm the co-director of the documentary films Cowspiracy, What the Health, Running for Good, and most recently, They're Trying to Kill Us with John Lewis. I was turned on to veganism through the political vegan straight edge hardcore scene. So I grew up in the punk rock hardcore music scene, and there was this incredible band called Earth Crisis, still a band actually today, who's talking about radical ecology, radical politics, and veganism. And they turned me on to this idea that if you really want to do the least harm possible and live a compassionate lifestyle, veganism is the solution. So I became vegan at the age of 12 and been that way ever since.
And good to hear Earth Crisis are still going.
Yeah.
How about you, John?
My name is John Lewis. I don't have as long of a resume as Keegan. I have one film coming out, which I co-directed with Keegan, called They're Trying to Kill Us. My journey began back in 2004 to the 2006 era. I went vegetarian at first, and I actually transitioned over to veganism once my mother was diagnosed with colon cancer, and just learning more about like the causes of those types of cancers that just led down, the rabbit hole. And I was like, wait a minute, so I can do this for my health, but then I started learning more about the animal rights and the human rights and the ecosystem, the earth, and just like all the things involved with this one movement. And that was enough for me.
But before we go any further, I definitely want to just thank you both, actually, because you've both played a really huge part in my personal vegan journey as well. So just to say off the bat, thank you so much for all you do.
Appreciate that.
It'd be great to find out where you both began to collaborate. Where did you meet, and what led to you forming this kind of new creative partnership? I say new, so like almost 5 years plus in the making now, so not new anymore, but yeah.
It was a Sesame Street group chat, and I have a new answer for that every interview. It's been J-Date, it's been everything. We've used everything on that. But I would say the vegan movement, we had, been around the same circles for quite some time, and we met at an event in New York City. And I came over to the table, not thinking he knew who the hell I was. I was like, he don't know who I am. He's like, oh, man, I love all your stuff. I was like, wait. I was like, my page, right? Like, you sure about that? Like, it's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we bonded, I think, like, within that year probably. We were just at another event, the same event, but a different city. And it was so dead there. Like, literally, like, he came over like, hey, can you come to my booth and I want to chat with you about something. And I looked around the room. I was like, yeah, I think I can go. Like, there's nobody here at this event. I'm like, nobody's coming. So we went over there and we just started he started telling me about, at that time, What the Health was coming out. And we're like, man, I was like, it'd be great to work together. He was like, oh, man, that's what I was going to talk to you about anyway. And then we were talking about, reaching more people. And I said, I would love to reach, the Black and brown community. And he said, well, how would we do that? And I said, well, hip hop. It was the first words that came out of my mouth, is that it's the most influential genre ever. And no matter where you're at, no matter what country, no matter what city, no matter what planet, it seems like now, like hip hop, I guarantee is being played on Mars right now. So we thought that would be the most influential impact, to use that hip hop backdrop to deliver the message.
And had the idea of they're trying to kill us, had the idea formed that early in the relationship between you, as far as the concept of the film and what you were going to explore in it?
Yeah, not exactly. Like, we thought about to talk about the health disparities. Like, we knew a little bit about that, how African Americans are disproportionately affected by chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes and cancer and heart disease than white Americans or European Americans. And so we knew that would be part of the film. We knew that food access would be a part of the film, that, Americans of color have less access to health-promoting foods than European Americans. But we didn't really know, at least I didn't know the full scope of what this film was going to be until we started getting into it and started doing the research and started shooting. And it was really eye-opening, really shocking.
Yeah, it may be naive of me, ignorant of me. I hadn't made these connections before hearing about the film. Was your experience as you started to speak to people and research that's quite common, that feeling that actually we hadn't necessarily seen these connections?
Yeah, definitely. I would say whether it be just talking about the film with different people or having our screeners, our testers, a lot of the feedback we got was like, man, I never made this connection. I would say most of the people that we actually interviewed for the film, they kind of saw the connection because they've been dealing with this for a long time. But when it came to actually talking to the public, many people had no idea. Or you'll hear certain times people like, I knew it, I just didn't know what the correlation was.
Yeah, people hadn't necessarily put their finger on it, but they knew something was up.
They knew something was wrong, right?
And do you think almost that the reason that these connections haven't been made before in such a kind of compelling and kind of explicit way is part of that construct, is part of the kind of the oppression, if you like, that it needs to be hidden?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a concerted effort to not let people know this and not make the connection. You look at mainstream media in the United States, when they talk about Black and brown communities, they talk about police violence, or they talk about inner city violence. They'll talk about poverty and crime, things like that. But they'll ignore the fact that vastly more Americans of color are dying from chronic disease than by gun violence. And it's just like, if it's about, really talking about the tragedy that's happening in low-income communities in particular, this would be the main focus. But you look at, who funds the mainstream media? It's like, well, where are they getting their advertising dollars? And it's like, you just see this collusion between so many different industries and so many different outlets working together. And so they don't want this information out. They definitely don't want it put together in a platform the way we've done. And, and then tying in hip hop, which, hip hop influences everybody, right? Like, it influences the country bumpkin in Texas, and as much as it influences, the kid in the Bronx. And so it's this massive platform, it's this massive genre that we can utilize. And so many of the hip hop artists in the film are plant-based or very health conscious. And so they want to talk about this issue, and they utilize their own platforms to talk about it. So I think we've put together something that's really compelling, really unique, that they really don't want people to see. And it's like, man, they do not want people to know this information.
The hurdles that we've gone through just to get to this point it's actually so crazy that it's funny. It's like, from people trying to bankrupt the film to animal ag organizations trying to, basically warn their members about our film, to platforms literally telling us to our face, like, hey, if this wasn't a social justice film, we could see paying you more for it. Like, just flat out. And other platforms wanting to cut out 30 minutes of the film because they directly told us to our face that while this is the most impactful documentary they've ever seen, and we fact checked it and we know it's true, we can't allow everything on there because it goes directly after our advertisers. So yeah,
runs deep.
They just didn't know that we had another plan.
Thinking about the folks you got involved, it's an incredible lineup of people. It'd be good to understand like what that process was like. And did you? I imagine you obviously you didn't. Everyone was involved in the film, sort of willingly, etc. But was there kind of a bit of trepidation on their part? In some cases, in terms of getting involved.
Let's just say this: blackmail works very well when you need favors.
That's a joke.
It's a joke.
For the record.
No, but for the record. But no, I've been very fortunate in this space to have worked and at least talked to and collaborated with a lot of the artists. So it helped out to be able to just, hey, remember the time we were talking about veganism? And maybe just been a DM and Instagram. It's like, hey, I'm working on this amazing project. I'd love to have you involved. And, Keegan's work before this really helped out as well. Like, I mean, I knew quite a few of the people, but saying, hey, this would be like the follow-up to What the Health. People were like, oh, well, okay, let's talk, And they knew it wasn't like I don't know my cursing limit on here, but they knew it
I'll
wasn't
go
a
for it.
crap. And they knew it wasn't a bullshit film, so they were more than gung ho to do it.
Yeah. Absolutely, Keegan. From your experience of making some of the previous films you've made, what was the level of resistance for this one? You mentioned John mentioned some of the hurdles that you'd had to overcome to get this film off the ground. Were they much greater than perhaps you'd experienced in previous films that you'd made?
Yeah, there definitely was unique challenges with making this film. The caliber of celebrity that we have in the film is definitely tough just scheduling alone, because these people have incredibly busy schedules. They all have managers and gatekeepers, and working through their channels can be really challenging. And Cowspiracy and What the Health really didn't have like a celebrity cast in the way They're Trying to Kill Us does. But once you get people in a room, their willingness to talk about these issues and talk about their personal experiences was phenomenal. I mean, it wasn't like having to pull information out of people. People just willingly shared incredibly personal and impactful stories. And that's, I think, one of the things that audiences, I believe, will resonate the most with this film, is that some of their favorite artists are talking about their own childhood, their own experience, their own relationship to food, their own relationship to poverty or racism. And I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people across all races.
And I think across all countries as well, because from my limited understanding, and certainly it's advanced since understanding a little bit about your film and looking into the issues in the UK. This is not a unique problem to the US, maybe exacerbated by paid healthcare, but as opposed to the NHS and so on in the UK, but not a dissimilar issue. I think this is endemic across these countries.
Definitely true.
It'd be good to just understand a little bit about how you got the film off the ground in terms of funding, because I understand this was quite a unique methodology to getting this one funded compared to perhaps other projects you've been involved in.
Yeah, it did. We did go a different route with this film, and it's totally not funded by any sort of broadcaster or major platform or streaming like that. We did a crowdfunding campaign with the film, and that was really successful, and that helped us with the final cost of the film. But we knew that we wanted to do this in a unique way, and part of that is the release. And from the very beginning, John and I talked about how we wanted to make sure that this film gave back to the people, gave back to the people in the film, gave back to the community. And so we knew from the beginning we wanted to give away a percentage of the profits of the film back to charitable organizations. And in fact, the release of the film, we're giving up the first $1 million that the film raises to charity, and it's to feed people and to literally lift up those who need the most.
Yeah. That was a big factor for us when we first started the project. And then, not only that, we also took it a step further to where ourselves, we're still donating proceeds from what we make from the film, even after the $1 million, to make sure that we help as much as possible.
I mean, clearly, it's going to have a huge, just that fact alone about what you're giving back, it's going to have a huge kind of cultural impact. But what are your hopes for the film itself in terms of its reach? What kind of conversations are you hoping that it starts, and even kind of what's the call to action, if you like, that you're hoping it inspires?
I would say I hope the conversations start over dinner. I want people to, especially with the horror day season coming about, where everybody's sitting over dead animals, eating, ingesting this. I'm hoping one family member seeing the film is like, you know what, we shouldn't be doing this, and then shares the film with the family. That's the big thing, because my biggest goal for the film since day one has been empowerment. I want people to feel empowered once they watch the film, and to understand that they do have quite a bit of control, even though there are some outlying factors that definitely are battling against us. At the end of the day, we control a lot of that. they just don't want us to believe that we control a lot of it.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm 100% what John said. I want people to get inspired, to get involved in whatever way they can, in whatever way that is meaningful for them. Some people feel really passionate about political change and that things can change on a policy level. That's awesome. They should put their energy in that. Some people feel that it has to be just grassroots, and so maybe that's getting, junk food out of public schools. Maybe that's making sure that your local corner store carries fruits and vegetables. Maybe that's creating a farmers market in your community. Whatever it is, getting people inspired and empowered that change is possible.
How did we touched upon it briefly about schedules and so on with the number of contributors to the film, but how's the pandemic impacted things?
In a weird way, it kind of helped us, because when we were working on schedules, we were doing pretty good. We downsized to just me, Keegan and I. At first we had like a team of 5. We were traveling. That only lasted like 2 trips. And we were like, you know what? We don't need all this. And I think that actually had a positive impact on the actual interviews because they felt more comfortable with just us 2 in the room. It wasn't like this big, Broadway spectacle that we were doing at first. But when it comes to the actual pandemic, I would say it kind of gave us a chance to kind of catch up. We were able to edit the film to a certain point and see the gaps that we were missing, or something that was missing, or something that just could be added. It wasn't necessarily missing, but we could see that. And then it also helped out because with that, so many people had more, I guess, screen time. Our buzz became more, it became stronger. When people start hearing about, we talk about police brutality, we talk about the health, we talk about viruses that are born through animal agriculture. So we were already talking about this, and then when the breeze caught it, it just carried it for us, and then I think that really just spiraled into more people wanting to know more about the film.
Thinking about it's been almost 5 years, I think, since you embarked upon this project. Looking back, where do you think the kind of vegan community has moved in terms of its ability to receive this film and amplify it further? Do you think we've developed to probably a more intersectional space, if you like, within the vegan community over the last few years, or is that just my social media bubble reading of things?
I'll go. I think it's gotten better. It could definitely become better, but it's gotten better than it was in 5 years ago. I know, because I know for me personally, I know when I first got into veganism, I was like, if it's not done this way, it's horrible. You're not really a vegan and this and that. Like I had that whole aspect too. And it's like, as you grow, you see that everybody has their own journey and everybody learns, as they go. I think sometimes people want new, I don't even want to say members because it's not a group like that, but people that are just people, even though some people act like that, like they act like, if you don't have your membership card, there's a gold card, a platinum card, depending. But I think that, sometimes people want everybody to know everything about everything when they're coming into it. And like some people are like, oh, you know what? I do want to get rid of the cruelty, that's in my life. So they go into veganism, but they don't know everything about it. They're just taking the first steps. And I think sometimes we're too critical and we just want everybody to be the best fucking vegan ever from the first time they touch a piece of kale. It's like, it's not like that. You grow and you learn as you continue the journey, but it's definitely gotten better.
Yeah. I think that the movement in general has grown astronomically in the last 5 years. Films like The Game Changers have helped tremendously in pushing this message forward and into a different demographic, and like the more sports focused, macho, like alpha male sort of community. And that's helped. And then, like the uprising of, the previous summers with, Black Lives Matter movement really taking off in the United States and around the world in a major way. People are waking up to social injustice. White Americans, let's say, are waking up to social injustice in a whole new way.
Yeah.
Because Americans of color are already fully awake and aware of what's going on. But yeah, I mean, you saw a lot of white people having their eyes open, and a lot of those white people are also happen to be vegan, and so they're starting to make the connection. And so I think the timing of this film is, audiences are primed for it. They're ready to hear this, and people are fired up and rightfully angry about the social inequities that exist, particularly in the United States. And this film just shows that it's deeper than they ever even imagined.
Yeah, 100%. Like you say, I think many people in many communities are completely aware of some of these issues, and it's catch up for the I think for the sort of white vegan community, if you like. And I sometimes worry when I look at social media that the world of veganism is portrayed as, yoga and kale, and nothing wrong with yoga or kale. They're both very great things, but not necessarily inclusive of the entire spectrum of viewpoints and opinions. And I think, more power to you for pushing this forward.
Thank you.
We're less than 24 hours away from the film being released. Firstly, how does that feel after so long in the making?
It's like this baby that just wouldn't come out. And it's been 5 years, and the due date keeps getting pushed back. And so it's funny. I was telling my brother, I was like, we've been working on this so long, I honestly don't know what to do once we release it. Like, I have to find a new thing to worry about. Like, I don't even understand, like, what to do after this. Which I still know is going to be a lot of legwork to come along with it, as far as, like, advertising, promotion, things like that. But it's very exciting. It's a nervous exciting, but it's exciting nonetheless.
Yeah, I think John nailed it. That this is a labor and birthing this film into the world. John and I made a baby together. Yeah.
No epidural.
Yeah, this is all natural. This is all natural. We're doing it ourselves. That's a good. The analogy keeps running. Yeah, there's no painkillers. There is no C-section. This baby's coming into the world 100% naturally.
No disrespect to women that have gone through that, because I know it's not easy, but I think that's the best analogy we can come up with right now.
Yeah, 100%. When was it that the film got initially premiered online? It was Tribeca, wasn't it? That it was first shown.
Which I believe was June.
Yeah, June 19th.
Was it June?
Juneteenth.
Yeah, June 19th. Oh yeah, it was for Juneteenth. Yeah.
And how was the response, the reaction when people first started to see it?
We have no idea, honestly. They didn't give us any numbers. They didn't tell us. I think we just recently saw the numbers from it, and it was like 500 people saw it. Like, it wasn't, but it was online, so it wasn't like the screenings that were actually there. Like, I went there to Tribeca and to see like the large amount of screenings, and even then, though, there may have been only 200 to 300. So in retrospect, we actually did real well, because they couldn't really fit a lot of people into the traditional screeners that they used to do. So actually, I think now that I think about it, it just hit me just now. I think we actually made out better by getting more people than what would be in there. But we didn't really get any feedback from it either, though. But nobody cursed us out, so I figured we did okay.
Tribeca, because of COVID, did more than half their catalog online, and they also included 2019, actually 2020 year as well into the film festival. So it was a ton of films this year, and yeah, we positive feedback. The people who did reach out, loved it and had their eyes open and couldn't say enough about it. And so we know that the launch on November 11th is going to be big, because it's going to impact people in a major way.
Going back to when you were filming it, you were going through the journey, not so much in the conversations, but in the bits where you were kind of, discovering the community where you grew up, going back to that, John, etc. What was there anything that kind of like surprised you that in either a positive or a negative way about what you saw? Were you kind of shocked at all, surprised by anything that you'd come across in your sort of research and then subsequent filming of the film?
John? Oh, it looks like John's frozen. So I'll answer that one. Yeah, there were a lot of shocking things, and again, for me being European American and not coming from the same community that John came from, there was a lot of things that were super eye opening, and one of the major ones was just access to healthy food. John, you're back. You were delayed. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was saying one of the main things that got me was talking about the grocery stores and how we found out in a lot of these contracts and leases they may sign a 30-year lease, but they have a stipulation to where no other grocery store can move in or occupy that grocery store once they leaving the community without a grocery store, and that makes them have to travel to their other store just to get food, and just a little like evil things like that. It's just very minute, but it adds up.
Access to healthy foods is a major problem in communities of color in the United States, and it's by design. City councils will allow more liquor stores than they will allow grocery stores, or they'll allow more liquor stores than they allow in white neighborhoods, which is just like, why is that? Why is it that they will say no, only so many liquor stores and junk convenience stores and fast food places are allowed in white communities, but it's unrestricted in black communities? That was really shocking to me. But another major shock to me was the health disparities, particularly for black women when it comes to pregnancy and labor. Black women are about 4 times more likely to die during childbirth than white women. And it's not because there's something wrong with black women. It's because of the inherent racism built into U.S. society that permeates through the medical system. And so there's a stat, for example, that black babies are more likely to die when cared for by a white doctor than when cared for by a black doctor. And it's like, but white babies are totally unaffected by the race of the doctor. And it's just a sad reality. And a lot of African Americans know this, and if they don't know it, they feel it on some level. But for me as a European white American, to find this stuff out was really hard and really shocking.
We obviously talked about your aim being with the film to start kind of a dialogue, to start people thinking about these choices, and actually that there is a lot more, as John said, there's probably a lot more control in decisions, from folks within these communities, in terms of the power. They have more power than perhaps they think in terms of the choices that they're led to believe they have. In terms of legislative change, in terms of thinking about what we can do in terms of applying pressure to politicians, voting in the right way, etc. Do you see that there is any room for light in our current political system in terms of, is there an option where we can make change from what you've seen in your perspective, or do you think that this problem is so deep that actually what we need is kind of almost root and branch system change?
Yeah, I think that on a local level, there's room for change. I think in government has the flexibility to change, and they're not as influenced by major powers like fast food or the animal agriculture or the pharmaceutical industry. On a federal, national level in the United States, I have very little faith, because the vast majority of U.S. representatives, and basically all but 10 U.S. representatives, receive money from the pharmaceutical industry. So they're not going to do anything that's going to negatively affect the pharmaceutical industry. And what negatively affects the pharmaceutical industry? People being healthy. And so you're not going to encourage people to change their diet, because then people are going to be healthy and they're not going to need the pharmaceuticals. So I don't see any hope on a federal level. But that also is part of my own worldview and political view and pessimism about societal change. I do think, though, that from a grassroots level, we stop supporting these industries, they stop having the money to influence government in the way they are. And so I think that everybody needs to take their power back and not expect it to be top down, but from a grassroots up. And I think that's what we're starting to see is this industry is losing its footing, it's losing its base, because people are saying, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so they're stopping supporting it. And that's the really powerful thing in this film is we have all these incredible artists and entertainers who are talking about how they were sick. They've had all these illnesses. They had all these problems, and they changed their diet, and all of a sudden they don't need pills anymore. They don't suffer from, arthritis in the same way. They don't have the same problems that they've always dealt with their entire life. And that's really powerful. It's like, that's really powerful. And that's the proof. When people people want to argue about the science of nutrition and things like that. And it's like, well, just talk to somebody who's changed their diet and see the incredible results they've had. Besides the fact that there's an incredible mountain of information that backs up that a plant-based diet is the healthiest diet in the world. It's the only diet ever scientifically proven to reverse heart disease. It's like, you're not reversing heart disease on a paleo diet or a keto diet or any other diet. It's a plant-based diet, which says a lot. And I think when people wake up to that, they have the information to make informed decisions. That's where we're going to see the real change.
I'll maybe come back to John's answer on that question if we get John back. But I want to continue down that line of thought, actually, if that's okay, Keegan. Just thinking about veganism, vegan culture. We've seen over the last few years the rise in vegan alternatives, plant-based meats, all kinds of different vegan products made by mainstream companies that we wouldn't necessarily have, in the past associated with veganism. You can think chocolate manufacturers. I'm thinking Cadbury's in the UK, and even Nestle have come out with stuff, and Burger King and Moving Mountains, obviously, and these other ones as well that are in that field. Some new companies as well as some sort of legacy ones. Do you think, in a sort of perverse way, that the idea that there is some monetization, if you like, going on of veganism, that an unintended byproduct of these businesses, because obviously I'd imagine they don't really care which way as long as they're trying to take a bit of the market share of something that they see as popular. Do you think that there's an unintended benefit insofar as people turning to veganism almost like it's a bit of a Trojan horse, by getting a McDonald's that's vegan or a Burger King that's vegan, that actually they will start to think a little bit about this product being vegan and what does that mean and so on? Or is that too optimistic of you?
Yeah. I think that these companies don't care about anything but money, right? They don't care if their product kills you. They don't care if their product reverses heart disease. They just don't care. They care about money. And so we've seen, Burger King and major fast food chains starting to sell, plant-based meats and, doing, 100%, plant-based Burger King. That's just for money. They don't care. They just see, hey, look, veganism is blowing up. This is a place where we can cash in. And so from a capitalistic standpoint, I'm like, cool, that makes sense. Like, they're just following the market. The market is going that way. People are, want to eat healthier. They want to eat more sustainably. They want to eat more ethically. So they're going to go that route. So those companies will continue to follow that trend as long as we continue to push it. But if the vegan movement dies back, they'll cut those things out. They're not invested in it. So I think that while those are great, I think it's more of just showing that the vegan movement is so massive that even multinational mega corporations are paying attention to it. It's not a fringe thing anymore. And the more accessible it becomes, the bigger the movement's going to grow. So I see it as a net positive, but again, I think it still just comes back to the fact that we as a community, as a grassroots community, are pushing this forward.
Yeah, 100%. It'd be obviously remiss of us not to tell folks where they could go about getting hold of the film and where they can see it. With less than 24 hours to go, hopefully we'll have this our conversation out when it lands. So as soon as people finish listening to this, they can go and watch They're Trying to Kill Us. So where can they go to find it?
They can see They're Trying to Kill Us on our website, which is they'retryingtokillus.com. You can download the film right from there. You can stream it right from there. It's available in, I think, 35 languages, subtitled languages. The film is $20, but we are giving the first $1 million that we raise ourselves to charity. So not only are you going to be able to support the film and get this message and get entertained and get informed, but you're actually giving back to a community and you're helping move this whole entire movement forward. John Lewis and I, as the filmmakers, don't see a dime until $1 million goes to charity. So this is a totally community-driven campaign. We have decided not to go with the mainstream streaming platforms for a bunch of different reasons, but a big part of that is that it prevented us from doing this. We want to be able to give back, and that's the whole point of this film. So we really encourage people to go theretryingtokillus.com. That's where you can see the film, and just spread the word.
Amazing. Well, I definitely encourage everyone to. I know I'm going to be downloading it as soon as I possibly can. If it's been a long wait, but one that's going to be well worth it. I'm absolutely certain. It's just probably mean of me to ask with 5 years in the making of hard blood, sweat, and tears to get to this point. But what's next for you, Keegan, in terms of filmmaking?
Yeah, so I've got another film that it's just finished production called The End of Medicine with Alex Lockwood, who's BAFTA-winning director, UK director, and the film is about zoonotic diseases and pandemics. We actually started making the film in the summer of 2019, long before COVID was making headlines, and it was supposed to be this warning that, hey, a massive pandemic's coming, and it's going to come from messing with animals. And then, 6 months into it, sure enough, here comes COVID, and it's zoonotic disease come from messing with animals. And zoonotic disease is any disease that comes from non-humans and jumps the species barrier. That film should be out soon. We're still working on distribution for it. It's a really powerful film. And then I've got 5 other projects in the works right now that unfortunately I can't talk about at the moment, but it's a super busy time.
You've not given yourself much of a break, have you, Keegan?
No, you can see the bags under my eyes for it.
Oh, fair play to you. I think they're incredible. Alex Lockwood's been on the show before, and I've been closely following End of Medicine, another film that I think is incredibly important, and a timely reminder. I worry a little bit with the pandemic that particular angle, that particular message has been purposefully kind of put to one side. So I think it would be a very important film as well, as I'm sure you know. But I can't wait for that one too. Okay, well, all that's left for me to say is just a huge thank you for all you both do. As I said before, you've had a huge influence on me personally, and I can genuinely say without both of your work, this podcast wouldn't exist. So a huge thank you, and best of luck with the film. I think it's going to make such a huge cultural impact. It really is. So thank you.
Thanks so much, man. Thanks for all the work that you're doing. Really appreciate it.
See you again. Bye now.
Bye.